I'm going to open the show this way because, well, I don't think there's any way I could avoid this. We have officially lost the Pope of Pop Cinema at 98. And I'm honestly a bit speechless. So I'll keep the tribute short, sweet, and to the point, which in many ways is one of the great signifiers of a quality Roger Corman picture. He was a man who got in, got out, and between those points A and B, delivered nothing but the finest entertainment for his audience, as well as helped to jumpstart literally hundreds of careers. Names in modern film canon that resonate across the world. Scorsese, Coppola, James Cameron, Dennis Hopper, Jack Nicholson. None of these incredible talents would have gotten their shot had it not been for some of the breaks given to them by Roger Corman. That alone earns the man his slot in cinematic Valhalla. But on top of that, he was a damn fine filmmaker. And I will never forget my first time watching Little Shop of Horrors. And of course, anyone who enjoys the musical owes Roger Corman a debt, for without the original, there could not have been Frank Oz's magical experience that came about in the 1980s. But when I sat down and watched that little rinky-dink 1960 black comedy shot in 3 days using only standing sets left over from a previous production, I was in love with it from frame one, because I saw in it not only an economy, but a craftsmanship, a consummate professionalism. For all its ropiness and all its camp and cliche and all its inventiveness, I saw a film that, given its circumstances, had every right to be dross, Z-grade crapola, but came up a thoroughly entertaining picture. If every filmmaker can learn to stretch a buck as deftly and as artfully as Roger Corman could, and in the process maintain an artistic integrity and a consummate craftsmanship, the world of film will reign on into infinity. Godspeed, Roger Corman. On with the show. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Quality Candor, the podcast, episode 2. By God, it's actually happening. And already I'm breaking the format. Now, the reason why is because I don't have enough material for the format that I want to do. I listened to a couple of albums, but it wasn't like a mind-blowing experience. Let's talk about it. Specifically, that was listening to John Clemmer's Touch, classic jazz record. Listening to that Ventures album that I mentioned last week, The Horse. And also listening to the 1984 soundtrack by Eurythmics. and as far as movies, I haven't seen in over a week or two. I've been watching nothing but like old adventure television, Johnny Quest, Thunderbirds, Doctor Who, what have you. And as far as books go, I haven't finished Casino Royale, but I've picked it back up on audiobook after having slaved away over 7 or 8 chapters of reading my Signet paperback. But I'm not done with it yet, so I don't want to talk about a book that I haven't fucking finished. I've done that before. I can get away with it in a newsletter, but I can't get away with it here, where you have to be, you know, bang, 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 bang on the money. So, what I've elected to do, and this will make the podcast and undoubtedly a shorter presentation than it otherwise would be, I'm going to be reading an article of mine. It's not a short article, mind you. It's got some heft to it, but it is something that I wanted to pull on, and also something that I believe should be on this channel. I have 2 Substacks at the moment. The first one, the main one, the flagship, is 365 Infantry, my pulp sci-fi, wolves in hot rods, you know, masterpiece. The other is Universe of the Astounding, which is where I write articles about arts and entertainment with a bit of a political point to them. Less in the sense that I'm, you know, talking about sociopolitical events and issues and ideas and, you know, dissecting them in the world of arts and entertainment. More looking at the state of how modern politics view art from the perspective of someone who is in it purely for his own vision and for his own craft. You know, political perspectives be damned. Not to say that, you know, my work is absent of, you know, socio-political content or views. You can't escape subtext in any of your work, but that I do not make it the focal point of how I operate. And so it's because I don't do that that I see so many oddities in conversation, in discourse, that I need to put down somewhere. I also put down stories over there, too. I've been starting to pick the pen back up and writing stuff that doesn't involve wolves in cars shooting laser guns. Although, if you do like that, go subscribe to 365 Infantry on Substack. The article I've chosen for this debut and for this exercise in Zen is a piece I wrote last August 2023, called Why I Curate, about the importance of tastemaking and artistic literacy. Hope you enjoy. I'm in the library writing this, and sat on my home away from home, read also The Desk, is a 1988 book by Barbara Bear Kapitman with photography by Stephen Brook. It's called Deco Delights and concerns itself with the Art Deco architecture of Miami Beach, down in Florida. I had just finished thumbing through a coffee table book about mid-century San Francisco, and this streamlined tome made for one hell of a chaser. I sat by a window thumbing through these 2 books. Not a note of music in my ears, just myself, the light of a morning sun shining through the 3rd floor, and pages upon pages of time captured and beauty immortalized. And for once, I felt alive again. Felt alive in a way I hadn't since college, a feeling also felt in the library, working on something I cared about. Could have been anything at the time, but the sensations both then and now were the same. It came as a quiet revivifying of lifeblood. Born not from the where and when of my own person, but of what I was delving into, and that lone moment of purity to experience it. Today's essay is a prescription. What I'm writing about here has worked for me, and it can work for you. I acknowledge that we're all our own animals, with our own ways of being, our own tastes, and our own approach to both our crafts and our support of others, but what we're about to discuss transcends all of that by its very nature. What I'm talking about has many names. I call it curation and tastemaking, among others, but those are the key words. And what they all mean to me is simple. To explore the works of all mediums, across all styles, and to identify that which speaks most to you and your vision as an artist, or your interests as an audience member. Whether in literature, film, music, fine arts, the works, it isn't for the purposes of organizing an exhibition or for the sake of judging a contest. It is meant for you and you alone, a place of comfort and freedom to learn about the many crafts of the world and find what sings loudest of all. What sings loudest of all to you. It is in this pursuit that I feel the perpetual outsider. There is nothing too highbrow nor too low, no style beyond consideration. The only barrier to entry in my canon is the matter of what resonates with me. Some works do, and some don't. It isn't something you can fully intellectualize. A lot of it is a matter of sensation, that ephemeral feeling a work sparks within you. Works of abstraction can stir my soul just as readily as a masterstroke of Hudson River School romanticism. A feature-length Mahler symphony can light the fuse of my mind's eye as readily as a 2-minute punk song or a rap record can. I try out anything and everything I can get my hands on, and what really socks me in the gut and sets the brain alight, that's the work to grab a hold of and hang on to. This, again, is where I seem to lose a lot of people. Some only care about contemporaneous relevancy, unaware that the most successful of contemporary craftsmen have a robust knowledge of their medium's history and can actively trace the lineage of their work back through the past. To pull at a random thread, while certain corners were flipping shit over the billion-dollar meta-modern toy commercial that was Greta Gerwig's Barbie, the director herself mentioned in interviews an affinity for the pastel-colored musicals of French New Wave legend Jacques Demy, such as the 1964 film The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. Others are the primitivists that go all hog wild about returning to traditional pre-20th century standards, reviving the ghosts of Michelangelo and Rembrandt to save the West. And yet, they appear unable or unwilling to either learn these forms and techniques themselves or finance those who can. In the absence of action, they turn to what can best be described as an academic zealotry, convinced that being passive-aggressively demeaning online will be a means of willing this nouvelle renaissance to fruition. The results have been less than promising. I lay at least 90% of the blame for these opposite numbers at the feet of the deranged socio-political state of the West, the remaining 10% on the debasement of education. This isn't a left thing, this isn't a right thing, this is a matter of unvarnished cultural, critical, and creative illiteracy. The inability to savor all that is not on my side, the inability to go beyond what the message is, coupled with a life spent glued to discourse and current events. It is a state of being best described as sticking your head in a toilet bowl as it flushes in perpetuity. In short, the mother of all swirlies. I don't seem to suffer from this, though. I've been floating around circles where people lean remarkably far to the left at times, and I've been in places where plenty are on the hard right. And I don't come in presenting myself as some centrist wunderkind either. I have my own ways about the world, and I'm sticking to them. But in everything I do, I am an artist first. This appears to be a big hurdle to clear, because for every one of me, there are dozens who put politics on the highest pedestal of their being, and when they realize the health of culture and arts intersects with such a matter, suddenly, arts and entertainment become their problem to bitch about. I think it is safe to say that the days of whining and crying about Star Wars and Disney and superhero films is coming to an end, but I don't think the pundits and the many brains they've rotted in the interim will be going quietly into that good night. And yet, I also don't think any of them have a damned clue what to do about it in the absence of pitching a fit. If one truly wants to make a difference via the high and popular arts, then one must understand what their true power is. It is a strength that lies not in the propaganda of ideas, but in emotional power and aesthetic resonance. The arts are experiences through which man comes to understand himself in a variety of ways. What turns us on, thrills us, inspires us, revolts us. The stories told, the moments in time captured, an ineffable magic that arrests one's attention. The best way to improve your ability in reading and savoring these qualities is by exploring every medium. And the only way to find out what truly sings for you, entertains you, and reveals these parts of the human condition to you is by trying everything you possibly can. Read all sorts of poetry, dig into short genre stories as well as the great literary novels. Take in all the films, albums, and games you can. Savor every possible work of fine art you can behold. For creators, these will be the keys to unlocking your true potential. When you found yourself overflowing with a unique cocktail of influences and knowledge, shaken or stirred to your liking by that grayish-pink blob of yours we call the human mind, you will be able to do anything you set it to, so long as you remain dedicated to both your newfound vision and the honing of your technical abilities. You can write that story, record that song, make that film or game, all because you went out and saw the world through those ancient, eternal, technicolor eyes of this beautiful beast of man's design we call art. I learn from the abstract as well as the classical, the genre as well as the literary. I seek, I devour, and I come out the other end with a greater understanding of myself as a connoisseur, as a craftsman, and as a person. And for audiences in need of an antidote to the mundanity of modern entertainment, guess what? You get to try all the cool shit. When you tuck away all those prejudices of modern technology and modern sensibilities, you may find yourself refreshed beyond belief when diving into works whose ideas and ways about the world have been made so alien, it's like stepping into another dimension altogether, where passions were sincere and a righteousness in conviction abounded. A time when a strong sense of aesthetic vision, matched by a powerful emotional core, conquered any haywire optical effect or monophonic mix dressed in vinyl static. So, how does one curate for themselves? In the information age, it may seem daunting to the point of impossibility. If you've ever felt intimidated by a fully loaded library with shelves upon shelves exploring everything you could possibly want to know, the information age is like the final boss of your worst nightmares. It has blessed and cursed man with an index to rival 1,000 libraries of Alexandria. Fortunately, I got a hell of a regime you should try, and it all starts with the wise words of an American legend. Writer and dreamer par excellence, Ray Bradbury gave budding authors a few rules for good hygiene in the craft of writing. 2 big takeaways were to write 1 short story a week for a full year, and to read a short story, a poem, and an essay once a night for 1,000 nights, which is Ray's way of saying do this for the rest of your goddamned life. For the sake of self-curation, that second part of the regime is the foundation upon which I will base my own. So every night, you're digging into a short story, a poem, and an essay. No restrictions on topic, authors, nothing. You might find yourself pinballed from a story out of Ursula K. Le Guin's Orsinian Tales to a romantic poem by Poe to an essay about the evolution of silverware. No limits, no restrictions, just start throwing these darts once a night, every night as routinely as possible. Hell, slip a chapter of a novel or a comic book in if you're feeling adventurous. Next up, listen to 1 full album of music a day. It's tempting to hit shuffle on a playlist and just let the random mass of tunes wash over you, but take time out of the day, whether on commute, at home, or before you go to bed, to experience a record in full. Whether classical, popular, or left field, savor what the album means as a complete body of work. The way it sounds, the kind of songs sung and music played, the way the mood shifts from track to track. Listen and let it all sink in. To switch from daily to weekly, next item on Dr. Calta's itinerary is a challenge. I challenge everyone listening to this to watch at least 1 motion picture a week. More if you can swing it. In this workaday world, it's a pain in the ass to sit down and watch a concentrated work of creative energy like a film. You're pulled in a million directions, and when you get home some nights, it might feel impossible to pick up that book of Teddy Sturgeon stories or your Peanuts omnibus. Some placate the audio-visual beast by binging television, but that binging can easily become a passive consumption no better than listening to lo-fi study beats. After a while, you're just not engaged with the work anymore. To experience a self-contained dramatic statement or a high-octane work of entertainment without interruption does the soul wonders. The real magic of the movies, if you will. And lastly, the free time prescription. Something you do when you have the spare second. First, buy yourself a nice coffee table book. A book of paintings, illustrations, photographs of sculpture, architecture, matters of mechanics or science, whatever you like. And on a day when you're home and you have a moment, grab the book and just start thumbing through it. Don't even read the captions, just savor the image. The fine lines of a Googie-style cafe, the perfect form of a planet like Saturn, the jazzy jaggedness of a Cubist-era Picasso. Just look and find one picture that knocks you out, a true love at first sight. Lock that in memory, dog-ear the page if you have to, and see if you can buy a print of it somewhere. If you can't, try and find a high-res scan online and print it out off your home printer. Get yourself a nice frame for it, put it up somewhere where you can admire it, like your home or your office. And you want to know what the purpose of all that is? You just found a muse. It may not be of the classical variety, but if you choose wisely, it should be a particular work that you can turn to as a source of inspiration, the match to strike when you need to rekindle that flame of yours. Let's also spare a few words for a few other different mediums that you can massage into this regime. Now, in the case of feature films, if you don't have the time, I definitely recommend programming yourself a couple of short subjects. Could be the old comedy films of Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, could be experimental works of European animation or what have you, but short films are really great ways to tide yourself over and to give that sort of pint-sized version of that cinematic experience. Now, while I bad-rapped their modern mode of consumption, a carefully curated program of quality television is a great way to unwind and study short-form storytelling as well. Pick a few episodes of a few different shows and watch them in sequence. That way the potential monotony of a marathon can't take hold. And I've had really good experience with this personally, because sometimes I'll program a block of Jerry Anderson shows, sometimes I'll watch Knight Rider and Airwolf one episode apiece back to back, and it does the trick because you're changing modes, you're changing scenarios, you're changing aesthetic visions, and you never glaze over. I mean, unless the episode's boring, I can't help that. You're the one that put the damn thing on. Radio shows and audiobooks are also best enjoyed when you can. The actual concentrated act of reading is one thing, but, going on a walk and, or mowing the lawn and listening to old shows like The Shadow and Green Hornet, or I'm a big fan of Mind Webs, which is a half-hour, essentially an audiobook presentation by the late great Michael Hansen that takes us through the wonderful world of speculative fiction for a half-hour delight. Lastly, video games. The great reliever of stress. Interactive media is very worthwhile engaging with, and it is naturally one of the most immersive experiences we have on hand. The key is in how you budget your time. I see nothing wrong with setting aside the time for gaming, provided you put a cap on it. That way it doesn't reach the same numbing of the mind that a TV binge can, result in. As the old saying goes, there can be too much of a good thing. I do not impose demands of style, taste, or decade because that's not what this exercise is about. It's about finding what speaks to you. But you also can't find that out if you haven't tasted the breadth of man's artistic pursuits. The only thing you have to lose is maybe the odd $2 on a streaming rental, or 20 if you're smart and you can find that art book at a thrifty bookstore. But what you have to gain is seeing all that man has been and all he has yet to be. There's no greater truth than that goddamn Scorsese line I keep going on about. This is a bit of an in-joke with the Substack. But for posterity's sake, let me reiterate. Study the old masters, enrich your palate, expand the canvas. Through this campaign of self-curation, you can enrich yourself beyond your wildest dreams, and through that enrichment find the bedrock of your craft and your support of others' crafts. Those powerful muses and influences that will stir you to action, whether in creating your own great works or funding and buying the works of others. And together, if enough of us take up this centuries-old banner, the future will be more brighter and more beautiful than we could ever hope to imagine. I'll leave you with the man who saw you at the door, Vincent Price. The Hollywood legend, renowned for his remarkable voice and brilliant blend of class and camp in his acting, was also an art collector. And in 1962, he took his campaign of bringing the arts down from on high to the people of America by partnering with a company seeking to do the same. Department store giant Sears. The end result of the partnership was the Vincent Price Collection of Fine Art, a uniquely populous program in which Price trotted across the globe, buying up original works of fine art and making them available for sale through Sears at their prices, with their payment plans and money-back guarantees in tow. No reproductions allowed. The campaign lasted for nearly a decade, and in this clip from the promotional film for it, you will find what must have been one of the greatest coups in the art world at the time. Price's purchase of The Angel Appearing to the Shepherds by Rembrandt. Allow me to reiterate. An original etching of Rembrandt, one of the Dutch artist's most famous, one which in 1962 was already a staggering 328 years old and had been passed between some of the greatest collections in the history of art, including that of the great English painter and collector Sir Thomas Lawrence, was made available for purchase at Sears Roebuck. I'll let the clip do the talking, but Price's determination to bring art to the public is an inspiration I find endlessly rejuvenating. Collecting was not just for the wealthy elites of the world, nor those locked away in their ivory towers. He believed it was a joy to be experienced by all people. To quote the man himself, "Art is the visual experience of man made exciting by talent." To that I add, if all people can have that chance to truly enjoy and experience art without the burden of the day's politics gnawing on your brain or replacing that capacity to savor brilliance and beauty with talking points and other nonsense, you will find that there are greater strides yet to be made by us all.
This is my pride and joy. This is one of the greatest names in the history of art, if not the greatest name. It is a name that everybody knows, a name you don't have to explain at all. One reason being that last year, the most tremendous price ever in the history of art was paid for a painting by this particular artist, Rembrandt. Now, I'm pretty sure that most of your customers will say, as they did years ago about diamonds and mink, Rembrandt at Sears? Well, yes. This is one of the things that I wanted to prove to people, that you could buy this greatest name in art at Sears prices. It's not a cheap object by a long shot because it's one of the most famous etchings in the world. It comes from 5 of the greatest collections in the whole history of collecting. It was bought by the first collector from Rembrandt personally and handed down through the great Sir Thomas Lawrence, who was one of the greatest collectors and painters of 18th century England, to a collector about 20 years ago who in turn sold it.
All right, that about does it for me. If you dug the show, leave us a like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. If you want to help keep the train rolling, go buy me a coffee at our designated link down in the description. And of course, down there as well, you'll find all the other many exciting things I'm up to in the World Wide Web, as well as the many exciting things we discussed today. Thank you for your time. As always, we'll catch you on the flip side.